Paul,
You
how many meals do you usually eat a day?
Two.
Is there any reason for that? And like, kind of the overarching thought I've always had is like, is it possible to eat too much meat?
Great question, because even vegans now are beginning to admit you need some animal foods in your diet, right? But the argument they'll make is you don't want a lot, you just want a small amount. But I've really not been convinced by their arguments. I think that you could eat too much lean meat if you didn't have enough fat with it, right? So if you were just eating the leanest steak you could, there is a condition called rabbit starvation, and this has happened historically to Arctic explorers. So technically speaking, if you were to just eat lean meat without carbohydrates or fat, your biochemistry as a human will break. You must have fat. But if you are eating meat with fat, then biochemically your body will be fine. You can eat as much as you want. And the counter arguments are you'll overstimulate IGF-1 or you'll overstimulate mTOR, right? The mammalian target of rapamycin. And the evidence that these sort of plant-based pundits or I would say cautious omnivores will suggest to really support their claims is quite weak. I've never seen a really good study to suggest that you could eat too much meat and fat and organs, right? If you're eating from nose to tail. And I will tell you that in hunter-gatherer tribes, the amount of meat they eat is proportional only to the success of their hunts. So in Kung San culture, for instance, there's very good evidence that at times when they have a successful hunt and they get a large animal, they will eat up to 2.5 or 2.2 kilograms of meat per day, which is 4+ pounds of meat a day, right? So there is this precedent for large amounts of meat eating at certain times. Now, we probably don't need to eat 4 pounds of meat per day as humans. We don't need that much nutrition, but I've not seen good evidence. I don't think there's any real substantiation for the notion that you can eat too much meat. It's kind of these, I would say it's these hand-waving arguments based on very poorly done epidemiology studies and these theoretical notions that you'll overstimulate mTOR or IGF-1, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because those are the sort of part of the signaling molecule cascade that you need to be a healthy, vital human with robust bones and muscles and nutrients, right?
Yeah,
So
actually wanted to ask you about IGF-1 at some point, but what's the timing and quantity of your two meals that you eat on a normal day?
yeah, so I'm about 165, 170 pounds. For most people, I think a good overarching, just a ballpark, is about 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight. So I'll try and get about 1.7 pounds of meat per day, which is about 170 grams of protein. So I think that works well for most of us. Some people will need more if they're super active, but I will divide that into two meals. I prefer to eat a morning meal and an early afternoon meal and then do intermittent fasting, kind of have a fasting quote window between early afternoon and the next morning. It's just what works best for me in terms of my sleep schedule, but I do like to have some period of intermittent fasting. And we can talk about carbohydrates, no carbohydrates, because that's a portion of the perspective where I've really evolved over time.
That's interesting.
I
That's
eat as
almost the
much as I
exact.
want whenever I. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, you eat as much as you want whenever you want, Sevan. I actually do intermittent fasting
I eat as
almost
much
in
as
the
I
exact
want.
opposite proportions of Paul. I usually don't eat until like noon, and then I'll stop eating at like 7 p.m. or 8 p.m.
I just eat as much. As soon as I got on the carnivore diet, I noticed I was never full. And what do I mean by full? About 3 months into the carnivore diet, my mom had a birthday and I had a piece of cake, and I immediately felt this feeling that I hadn't felt in 3 months. It was like, oh, I need to go sit on the couch. Oh, my stomach feels distended. When literally there were other times when I would eat 2 pounds of meat, ground beef, with like 3 eggs in it, and I could like 20 minutes later go work out. It was so bizarre. I had no lack of like mobility, no matter how much I stuffed into my face. And I feel like if I don't like basically force myself to eat when I'm in this state, I'll quickly start to lose weight. I also fast at 36 hours. And when I say fast, I drink coffee, but basically once a week. And I'm trying to do that for 52 weeks. I wanted to see what it would be like to give my digestive tract a rest of 52 days in a year. So Saturday night, I stop eating. I don't eat again until Monday morning, except for coffee.